Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out.
And scream.
Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. Good whatever time of day you are listening to this. I'm not wasting any time. I cannot stop thinking about the idea of, hello, welcome, whatever, you get where you are. I'm obsessed with this idea of like, we're supposed to get older, not wiser. I'm sorry. We have been sold a lie by old people when things go to shit that they're like, oh, it gets better. You get older and wiser, and you know more about yourself and all of this stuff. No, you don't. And yes, I did when I was about 29 and 6 months, I suddenly did feel like a almost dopamine release of like, oh, things are okay. Like I don't feel, as my brain was like not like chaotic. However, things aren't getting better. They aren't. You can't tell me they are. I want to start, I'm going to work through this physically. Okay. Now, yes, some of you may argue I've been allergic to potato for longer than a few years, but there is no denying that around mid-20s to late 20s, I became allergic to potato overnight. What feels like overnight. Maybe you could argue there were some signs and, living in America and eating whatever food they have and call food ruined my body. That's what the professionals would say. But I would say that becoming allergic to potato was the final gateway to there is more to life. And once I crossed over that threshold, I was in, it's all downhill from here. I have had multiple foot injuries, left foot, to the point where I'm waiting to get a surgery on that. I can't sleep anymore. I can't sleep anymore unless it's in a specific medically prescribed position. I had a sore left shoulder. Now, I like to, as I've mentioned before, dislocate my shoulder, sleep with the arm underneath the pillow, and kind of just sleep on that scapula, if that's the right part of the body. That's how I sleep. That's the only way that feels good to me. Also with something between my knees and hugging something. So it's kind of a really, it's not right. It's not right at all. But hey, people evolved sleeping on rocks in caves. And they would have used their shoulder. Maybe they used each other as pillows. I don't know. No one really knows anything about the past. We never can. That's the thing. It's in the past. Let's not dwell on it. But I developed a sore left shoulder and I was about to do some shows. So I was like, oh, we better get this fixed. Sometimes I like to leave it to naturally correct. And I go to a physio and she's like, how do you sleep? And I told her shoulder under the thing. And she said, oh, you can't do that. And I was like, okay. And then she goes, how do you get out of bed in the morning? And I was like, okay, let's say by the time it's the morning, my shoulder is dislocated, so located again. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Located. So my shoulder is located again in the natural position. I'm laying either on my side or on my back. And the way I get out of bed is I just kind of hop out. It's quite vigorous. You wouldn't want to be in the way. You'd get caught in maybe fisticuffs. And I said to her, I just kind of get out. And she goes, you can't be doing that anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, you can't. You're old now. You're midlife. You've hit that middle of my life. 31. I'm a teenage 31. I'm a sprightly. If I still have teenage acne, you can't be telling me I'm middle-aged. So she said, what you need to do is, let's say you are on your back, right? You're going to roll your body into the recovery position, and then put your hands onto the bed and gently push up. The recovery position, I'm like, do you know, has anyone ever done a first aid course? You put someone in a recovery position when you think they are dead, when they're non-responsive. So you're just going to put yourself in the recovery position. Why? Shoot me out the back of your practice if that's where I'm at. physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, the recovery position. And I've been trying to sleep in the more appropriate position for my tired old body. But I just, sometimes I forget. And I remember my grandfather, one time I said to him, what's the worst part or what's the hardest part about getting old? And he was like, in my head, I'm still like a 13, 14-year-old boy, like playing soccer. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to get depressing and deep. He's dead, if that helps anyone. That doesn't help anyone. And I never really understood that. I was like, oh, whatever. But your physical, this is so depressing. I used to get really mad when I'd see like old men just like randomly stretching on a pole on the street. They'd like stop the traffic to stretch. And now I'm like, I get it, boys. Pull that car over and fucking use the curb for those ankle raisers. Honestly, you need to get yourselves in tip-top shape. It's like everything you can, if I sit for too long like this, I'll stiffen up. It's just God and your body reminding you, hey, don't sit still for too long. If you do, you're going to slowly die and turn into stone. That's what getting older feels like physically. And I go to the gym and I sleep in my recovery position and I push up in the recovery position. This morning I did launch. I would be okay if body slowly goes to shit. No worries. I get it. We're using this thing, right? It is a I was going to say faulty, not, what's the word when something is not faulty, when it's perfect? Well, we're not robots. Our bodies aren't robotic yet. So I'm not surprised that our bodies do slowly fail. I mean, it's muscle, tissue, all the other bone, whatever else you got in your skeleton. That's not my job. It's not my job to tell you what we've all got inside our flesh bag sack of a body. Okay, you know it. Say it with me. 1, 2, 3. Marrow. I know rationally that the body has to decompose, it has to decay, it has to break down. And isn't that the whole philosophical point of life? I used to want to be a vampire. It's why I love Twilight. Most people loved it for the sexual component between Bella and Edward. She's 17 and he's at 497 or whatever the fuck he is. I'm not interested in that kind of age gap. If I really wanted to date an old man, I could. What I loved is the fact that he lived forever. I used to be obsessed with that, and I still am. I still would. If you gave me a pill that I could take and I would live for 400 years, 500 years, I would do it. I think that's phenomenal. I don't think that that's like, I know some people are like, God, I'd never. I'm like, I think that would be sick. Imagine seeing 500 years of the world. Holy shit. That's epic. But the point is, I get that our bodies have to break down. I do. But the way that old people made it sound was as if as your body breaks down, don't worry about it. You're going to get more comfortable with who you are. You know yourself more. You don't care as much about things in the world. And I agree. I don't care quite as much about, what people think of me, how things work, la, 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 la. Agreed. But I can't do things that I used to do anymore because I'm too smart, because my brain is fully developed. Now, when I was younger and if I smoked weed, you had these existential crises, if you will. The classics, because your brain can't do much. You're like, oh, the world is so big. I'm just an ant scurrying around. Fine. Oh, one day my parents are going to die. Yes. Now, the next day you sober up and your brain can make sense of these thoughts because they're existential and you can Google these things and you can talk to people about these things. But I've gotten older, so those things all are fine to me. They make sense. Now what I'm finding is I'm too smart, so the thoughts you can't sober up from. They're too damaging, these thoughts. I got high with my friend Nick a while ago, and we're high, and we were talking just about, I don't even know what, and I said to him, you know what I think about a lot? I think about the fact that I'm just inside. It's just me. Jess is just back here, just behind this layer of flesh and bone. I'm in there. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'm in me. I can see me. I can see my nose and my boobs and my hands. What? I am in me. And that, you don't wake up from that and go have Maccas and watch a movie and you sober up and you feel better like a hangover. That sticks with you. I'll be walking around sometimes and just be like, looking at myself. I'm like, whoa. You look in the mirror and you're like, that's me. And then the worst is when you look at yourself and you're like, that's not me. Something isn't right. Fucking hell. That is a mental fucking break. And then I was high the other week and And I've been obsessed with evolution recently, specifically like just the beginnings, but then also like how we evolved hunter-gatherer, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking into some stuff for some new ideas for jokes that I've been thinking a lot about, and how like evolution and hunter-gatherer society like influences gender norms, and that it's so nuanced, it's not that simple, blah, blah, blah. But that's just the genesis, if you will, of why I've been Googling these things ferociously. What do you think it is? You say it on three to yourself, and then I'll tell you. Ferociously is in a frightening and violent way. I would say that's what I meant. But why do I think ferocious meaning is also a word? Voracious, having a huge appetite or being excessively eager for something. Okay. I'm going to go so far as to say both. I have been Googling these things ferociously and voraciously. Okay, voraciously? Wow. A folk-like appetite. Now, what the hell is... wolf-like. Sorry, that was my dyslexia. I saw the word just wrong. Now, that's why I've been Googling these things non-stop. But I am obsessed with evolution, and I have been thinking a lot about it. For example, this is something I need to still fact check. It's on my to-dos. But when I was at university, I studied sociology, and within that, one of the classes we spoke about evolution and just like, and also like ideas. It sounds like this episode I am stoned because but I'm not. I'm just relaying high thoughts, which emulates the feeling of highness to you. But I'm stone cold sober. I will be driving a car after this. But this teacher once told a class that fire was invented simultaneously, and when they say simultaneously, it could be, within however many years of each other, in 7 different locations within the world that had not met each other yet. So it just shows you that like human creation can be like, they were all obviously evolving simultaneously to the point where like they discovered fire organically. Now, that doesn't mean anything, but isn't that interesting? Surely I'm not the only one who finds that fucking interesting. And hey, fuck you if you don't find that interesting. Reevaluate your ideas. Anyway, so obsessed with the idea that evolution, right? And I was high and I was like, whoa, like we're all just like monkeys. We're just monkeys who have just evolved a little bit and not much. Hey, God damn, not much. And so I was like, oh, wow, like monkeys built buildings. Monkeys built the internet. Like a monkey built your house and built your stuff. And like a monkey teaches you in school. And it's just crazy because I was walking around and I was like, of course a building's going to collapse every so often. A plane's going to fall out of the sky. A house is going to crumble. Your phone will malfunction. Monkeys built these things. We are just animals monkeys built buildings. And then you have the audacity when your Wi-Fi router doesn't work for 5 minutes because it has to reboot because someone has to press a button. A monkey built this. Obviously it's going to have a couple issues. That makes total sense in my mind. However, I doubt it makes sense to anyone else. But that's my point is now I can't get high because those thoughts you can't wrestle with those thoughts. That's just in my mind as a fact now. Whereas before, if I was like, oh, what's the meaning of life? You'll find it. What's the meaning of life? Not a big deal. You'll get married, you'll have a child. If you don't, you have a career you like. If you don't, you have a family that you like. If you don't, you travel. The meaning of life, that's not hard to stumble across. And it's also not hard to convince yourself of one. You just tell yourself it enough and then you'll believe it. That's essentially what manifestation is. I don't think that's true or right, so don't worry about believing any of what I'm saying right now. But you can't rationalize with we are monkeys who build buildings. I am inside my head. I am in me. You can't sober up from those things. So when people want to tell me, oh, don't worry, when you get older, you just know who you are more and you're just so calm. Am I? Because I'm getting worse. And worse is not making me calm. I might not care what people think of me, but I am slowly getting more twisted and convoluted in a spider's web in here. I'm pointing to the top of my head for anyone who can't see. As I got older, I was getting a little more drug curious. I wasn't a big drug taker in school. I was much more of a drinker. And then as soon as I got my driver's license, I was like, freedom. So I was always a designated driver because I loved that. And I was definitely naughty from when I was 14 till about 17. Like really naughty, like yikes, naughty for my poor parents, but also get over it. Such is life, baby. You chose to have kids. Hey, look after them when you get one who's a bit of a psychopath. I was never particularly drug curious. However, as I got older, I guess I did a little bit. So I did start smoking a bit of weed with friends, because my theory with drinking, for example, same with drugs, I guess, is like, if everyone else is drunk, just act drunk. Do whatever you want. No one knows. And they will be more worried the next day about their shit behavior than yours. So you're in the clear. When my friends are getting drunk and being crazy, sign me up. I'm like, free pass to just like do the most hedonistic shit while stone cold sober and remember it. Though maybe that's the thing. Maybe people don't want to remember them making the weirdest choices imaginable. Anyway, that's not a me problem because I like it. You know, growing up, you hear all these anecdotes from older people about like, don't take drugs and drugs are really bad. Now, there are a couple anecdotes, and I feel like this is universally known. One is that a friend of a friend of a friend, so it's never someone you can directly talk to, went somewhere, such as on a trip, schoolies, went away with friends on a weekend away, and took a drug. Now, it's never weed. It's always like an ecstasy or a insert party drug. And then they had a psychiatric break. Is that possible? I'm sure. Do I know someone directly who it happened to? Absolutely not. But is that kind of in the ether of adults trying to stop kids from taking like generic, it's not like name brand generic over the counter like medicine. It's like random drugs like that you get from a random person who's laced it with God knows what, such as glass and shit like that. So I'm sure that it is possible. Not that I know. I don't know enough about anything to say for sure anything's real. Like this could all just be me. I could be high right now and just think I'm recording, but I'm just sitting in my bed rocking back and forth. Anyone's guess. That's how strong my brain is to imagine this whole scenario. I remember once, either it was an anecdote my dad told me or someone's parent told me, because I remember being a person like either a father figure or like a adult, and I use that loosely because what do they know? But they said to me that their friend took a drug and they thought they were a banana. I'll just say that again in case you're like, oh, maybe I misheard. Banana, like the thing you peel, which honestly kind of works out with my theory about we're all monkeys, but also it also works out, now that I'm thinking about it, with my theory that as you get older, your brain is smarter because it's developed. So when I was younger and I had those existential crises thoughts, but when you get older, I'm in me. I'm a banana. That kind of checks out. I kind of believe it. It kind of makes sense, which is terrifying. And so I always was like, a banana? You thought you were a banana? Like, how's that possible? Hey, now I get it. Now I get it. It's such a shame that these wise anecdotes that adults try to warn children from things isn't told to us when we're older. Because when I'm older, I get it. But when I'm young, I'm like, a banana? What would you know about a fucking banana? I'm just sick of the narrative that things get better. You get wiser. Things get easier. That's not true. Yes, on a very simple level, like I've said, maybe you don't care as much what people think of you. Positive, sure. But I'm too smart now to live in this world. And things are changing outside so fast. And I have all the patience in the world for old people now, because I am slowly becoming someone who has to roll themselves out of bed like they are slowly dying. Because I am. Because we all are. So I have all the patience in the world for older people now, because I'm like, oh, if I have to roll myself out of the bed in recovery position and then go out into the real world where things are different, where now you can take a phone with you. My grandfather was born in 1925. There was a horse and buggy. That's how he got around. It was either your feet or your horse if you had one. Or the commute. I guess they probably had like an Uber equivalent of a horse and buggy, which is incredible to imagine that there was like a central service you could call up, walk to and book a horse and buggy. I'm Googling that this week. I have grown a little more patient for the old people, because I do think old people are trying to convince young people it gets easier to convince themselves that it gets better, because it doesn't. Because the world out there, it's terrifying. Newspapers, which don't really exist anymore, used to put births, deaths, and marriages. That's how few people there were in the world. That's how little there was going on. Now, I don't really know how it works. You probably have to like pay to get in the magazine. You pay to play. But on top of that, they can't put births, deaths, and marriages in newspapers anymore. People are fucking Eiffel Towers. A woman married an Eiffel Tower. What is that going in the newspaper? A man fucks his car exhaust. People are addicted to eating toilet paper. There are shows that document all of these freak people who have fallen in love with inanimate objects. What do you want to put that in the newspaper? Ironically, it's not in the births, deaths, and marriages section. It's in the newspaper because it's insane. And I don't want to kink shame. You do whatever you want to do. In my pursuit of researching history and researching all this stuff, I've been working tirelessly on a joke about how women are kinkier than men. Men are horny, women are kinky. In gladiator time, women used to pay to have the muck, guck, and sweat wiped off a gladiator, put in a bottle, and given to them to rub all over their body. That's some kinky shit. That's some crazy shit. You do get wiser. And if that wiseness, if that intelligence scares you, hey, welcome. You're home. This is your safe space. Smarter is not easier. Smarter is harder. Smart people are depressed. Dumb people are happy. And I used to want to moonlight as a dumb person. And yeah, I would still like to do that, just switch my brain off for a couple days. And that's what I used to do to get high. You just switch it off, have a laugh. Not anymore. Not anymore. I take a drug now and I think, I am in me. I am behind me. I am in me. I can't be living like that. I have to get out of here. There are things to do. I must start my day. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for listening. Go get high. Let me know what happens. Maybe you're not having the same experience as me. Maybe I need to get some new stuff. Maybe that's the problem. Over and out. Mwah.